sorts of things of that kind with respect to the United States. And again, until there is some full resolution of the trade issues between these countries, I cannot imagine that the Chinese are going to rush to pull that back either. These...
Look at that flash.
If you like to call them that, it seems to me that that is what they are probably seen by each side, more correctly by the Chinese, by the way, as providing them with leverage, critical leverage.
I can see clouds moving quickly.
But nonetheless, that shouldn't get in the way of bringing down some of the other humongous tariffs that have been imposed, so as to allow trade between China and the United States to resume again. And hopefully that will happen. Maybe the tariffs will be brought down, the US tariffs will be brought down to say 10 or 20%, and we'll have trade talks begin in earnest.
Looks like pollen's flying around. There was a lightning strike.
Long-term settlement can be achieved. Now, those trade talks might be terminable. They might not have any very satisfactory outcome. And if the tariffs are reduced at the moment, I think inevitably and unavoidably,
Kind of a cyclist, two of them.
Reinforced in their belief, which they already have, that with respect to trade negotiations with the United States, they are negotiating from a position of advantage.
Okay.
That was why this whole idea of imposing these massive tariffs was, from an American point of view, in my opinion, always a mistake. Far better not to have made so visible the extent to which, in trade negotiations, it is China that has the stronger cards.
Yes, I've logged storms.
It was done. We might have negotiations underway. It doesn't prevent some tariffs remaining in place, but not these sky-high tariffs we have at the moment. There is something else I want to say, however, about this story, and that is that we're now just beyond the first 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency, start of Donald Trump's presidency, or to be more precise, his second term. And I think it is fair to say that that term began very strongly. We had
It's the wind picking up.
We had all the various operations of Doge, of Elon Musk. We had the effective closure of USAID. We had the vast raft of executive orders. And then we had attempts to reach out to Russia to settle the conflict in Ukraine. We had pressure on Israel to agree a ceasefire with Hamas. We had the first outreach to Iran to conduct negotiations with Iran. Now, we are now...
People are riding in it.
the first 100 days. And I have to say this. It seems to me that the momentum of those first days, of the first 2 weeks, is draining away. Firstly, we hear an awful lot less about Doge than we did. Elon Musk, from having been a key figure within the administration, seems to be preparing quietly to return to work on his businesses. He doesn't seem to be as involved in policy at the center of power in Washington as he was previously. Instead of a very major reduction in budget spending,
Here it comes.
the
Sidewalk's
American
hitting
budget
wet.
deficit has actually grown, and the most wasteful part of the
Yes, I'm
budget
ready for my house to be
has
struck.
increased massively, with a $1 trillion
I
spent
know.
on defense, even as the US military, especially the army, is apparently about to be reduced in size. So it doesn't seem as if the United States is bringing its fiscal situation back in order. The administration has proposed a budget which, if you disregard the enormous increase in defense spending, does offer
Your iPad has a good view.
Yep, thank you.
cuts in spending in other areas. I personally believe that the priorities here are all wrong. I think the United States would achieve an awful lot more by cutting defense spending and prioritizing that over other cuts, but that is a personal point of view. My own view is that once we get through the budget process, we will find that Congress is going to restore many, if not most, if not all, of
When
the
you done,
cuts that
put the curtain on.
administration
Yeah.
is proposing to the budget, so that the
It's okay for a man
US
because
budget
it's time
will
forever.
grow even further. That inevitably means that debt levels are going to increase still further in a year when the United States has to roll over $9 trillion of existing government debt. The US Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has said that America's debt trajectory is unsustainable. It is difficult to disagree, but I can't myself see that anything fundamentally is changing. So that's where we are on the key economic issues. Note that we do have some tariffs, we do have some move towards protectionist policies, but there is no sign of anything that can really be described as an industrial strategy, as a real plan for turning the US economy round. Certainly, if the intention
You're definitely
in
invisible.
the tariffs was to recreate the kind of structure,
No.
the so-called
I take Jesus for son.
that existed in the time of President McKinley and in the 1890s, for decades before and after, and which many people today see as the foundation, providing the foundation for American economic success and American power. Well, we see nothing like that at all. The government, the administration is still mostly focused on tax.
I kind of wanted it to be in a good way, like not behaviorist.
Favor the wealthy at a time when
You know,
budget deficit is increasing in the
maybe
alarming
with
way
her,
it is.
yes.
I wonder whether the kind of tax cuts that are being discussed are really the right way forward. But anyway, whatever. Even if they do benefit some people in the economy, I don't think they're going to change things fundamentally overall. So, economics, domestic policy, the big things there are not being achieved. And in foreign policy, it seems to me, it's the same. There was, starting in February, a big effort trying to resolve the crisis in Ukraine and to establish some kind of rapprochement with Russia. We seem to be nowhere close to achieving any of that. The White House spokesman, or rather to be more precise, the State Department spokesman, Tammy Bruce, says that it looks as if progress has been made to try to agree a peace settlement. In the framework of it, we were,
Yeah.
so if the framework of if we were to withdraw as a mediator would come, if we don't see progress with parties, and we do,
I don't have FaceTime yet.
it has to, that both parties must come up with a proposal proposals for an enduring peace. So I was telling you, Bruce, so, they do see progress, they do see the parties making progress. I'm completely unable to see any sign of progress in achieving a peace in Ukraine at all. The ceasefire idea has clearly failed. The Ukrainians refuse to engage the Russians in negotiations, as we will see shortly. The situation, the military situation on the battlefront is escalating, and there is
Okay, I will
no sign of evidence as far as I
stop
can
now.
see
Yes.